Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by thegaminggang.com. If this is your first time joining me, kick back, relax. This is not something overly stuffy. It is very relaxed here. We are certainly not performing rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. So, do want to point out, if this is your first time hanging out, first half of the show is devoted to the latest in tabletop gaming news. Second half of the show, we take a look at a tabletop game. So, do want to mention tonight, I am going to be unboxing and taking a first look at the Rocketeer, Fate of the Future from Funko Games. So, stay tuned for that. But that will be after the news. So, once again, I'm sure we've got some new viewers hanging out. Just so you know, first half of the show, we talk about tabletop gaming news. Anyway, also should mention that if you like this video, by all means, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ding that little bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live right here on YouTube, it'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my review of Dungeons & Dragons, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I don't know why I just said it like that. It just sounded kind of odd, didn't it? But got to point out, really, really like this adventure. I'll spoil it a little bit saying, it's my favorite adventure Wizards of the Coast has released for 5th edition. So keep that in mind. Of course, also want to mention when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You'll see reviews that I don't do. Sammy Uhas does a lot of RPG reviews for me. So you don't get to catch those here on the show or on this channel. So by all means, go get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live stream, so that also means that chat is available. It's not on screen. So one of the ways that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay, but I do my best to pay attention to chat. So if you want to see howdy, or maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. So tonight is Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021. This is live stream 696. Hey. All right, so let's see. Who do we have in chat tonight? John Vogel was first out the gate, followed by a Gray Day. We haven't seen a Gray Day in a while. Nicholas Stanishek's with us. Viper Dave has arrived as well. So we've got chat off and running. So Nicholas says, the Rocketeer is literally rocket surgery. Yeah, I don't know about that. Do want to mention before we get started, I did run across on Twitter. I happen to follow one of our chat chat moderators, the Madman. Unfortunately, I saw that his 104-year-old grandmother has had a change for the worst health-wise. So I don't think we will see the Madman tonight, but good thoughts heading his way, his and his family's way. Always hate to hear, things like that. But did want to mention that, and I'm hoping for the best. All right. Anyway, let's jump on into the latest bit of news because I've got quite a bit here. Arriving in November from Rio Grande Games is Glory Islands. Here's the dope. Arg. Of course, that's by Arg. The year is 1660. The pirate ship crews are determined to find out who is the best captain amongst the pirates. A contest will be held to crown the king of the pirates. Glory Islands features easy-to-learn rules and fast, simple turns. You must outwit your opponents to claim fame and fortune. It has 2 different game boards and also includes a mini expansion in the main game box. Glory Islands is played over a series of rounds in which players simultaneously play sailing cards from their hands. The card values determine the turn order, how far ships can move on the board, and where pirates may be placed. Say that 5 times fast. Pirates may be placed on the board. Depending on where they are placed, pirates may receive glory, treasure tokens, or barrels, hopefully of rum. Num, 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 num. Cards may also provide bonus actions that players can use to gain an advantage over their opponents. When pirates occupy all the spaces on an island, the player with the most pirates on that island will gain the most glory. Game is over when 1 or more pirate ships have completed the route around the islands. Players with the most glory is crowned king of the pirates. Glory Island is for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, plays in 30 to 60 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $44.95 when it, as I mentioned previously, hits stores in November. Nice. Very cool. I always like to share a little kind of like, family sort of games. Yeah, I like to, try to get one family sort of game story out there every show. So there is that. That is coming from Rio Grande Games. Rio Grande Games was a company that at the last minute pulled out from Gen Con because they were actually supposed to be sharing the same area as Czech Games did on the second level of the convention center. And they pulled out, and Czech Games got to use up the whole area, got to use up the whole space. All right, so Boris is with us. Flaming here on one of our chat moderators is also in the house. Kevin R. Smith just strolled on into chat as well. So we've got a nice chat off and running already. On to the next news piece. Currently up for crowdfunding is Artisans of Splendent Vale. Here's what I know. Long ago, a splendid streak of crimson fell from the sky and carved the valley from the earth. The foliage that the light touched grew wild and fierce, and the wildlife grew larger and more fearsome. Life prospered in the vale. From distant lands, members of many cultures converged, drawn by the mystery and allure of the red star and the, communism? No, not communism. And the verdant realm it created. They settled there, distancing themselves at first. The soil was hardy, perfect for crops. The rock was rich with mineral deposits begging to be mined, and the very land itself seemed eager to be shaped. On warm summer nights, the velvet sky became streaked with the scarlet light of meteor showers. The settlers found that under these lights, their crafting projects finished more quickly and with greater results. Before long, the people began to cooperate, sharing their wares and knowledge with one another. Together, under an evening meteor shower, they found a shared township, one that valued knowledge and craft. The township was named Splendence, after the valley that brought them all together. In the centuries that followed, a red substance the people named material could be found after meteor showers. Artisans learned to craft using the substance, which lent magical qualities to their works. These works, called artifice, were established, which would catapult the township into an industrial revolution. The Artisans of Splendent Vale is a cooperative adventure game set in a magical and unique land. As a troupe of artisans, you will explore the beauty of the Splendid Valley, or I should say Splendid Vale, not Valley. Read English, Jeff. While honing your individual crafts. Overcome challenges during tactical action scenes played out on specialized grid maps. Then experience individual interludes to build your story. separately from the group's tale. Teamwork and careful strategy will be crucial during these encounters. Do want to mention, I am utilizing some photography that was taken by Marcus Spinner. I do not know if he has any sort of affiliation with Renegade or the designers of this game, but unfortunately, this is a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter is another one of these where Renegade Game Studios decided they were going to put all their information on one big, long image. And it's very, very difficult to separate images out. So I am using some images from Board Game Geek. This actually is not one of them. This is from Renegade, or at least from their PR person. But there is a quick Kickstarter video. It's just over a minute. So why not kick back and give it a peek?
A long time ago, the splendent veil sprung into existence, and with it a multitude of wonders, wonders that the world had never seen before. Now the veil is a truly splendid place, a place of community, teamwork, adventure, and exploration. A harmonious community has formed within it. A group of adventurers that share their talents and gifts, seeking to make Splendence a better place. Accompany them as they travel forth to tackle new challenges and make new allies. Create tools, crafts, and friendships like the world has never seen before. Their quests are just beginning, their stories unfolding. Join the artisans of Splendent Vale. Hone your crafts, explore the Vale. Adventure awaits.
Artisans of Splendid Vale is for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up. The Kickstarter project is well past 800% funding. You can reserve a copy of the game as well as all unlocked stretch goals for a $99 pledge through October 8th. There's an expected delivery of next August. So a couple of things I do want to point out about this game. I am sharing this news story. This game does have a queer, trans, person of color kind of underlying theme to it. And I don't want anybody getting all bent out of shape because of it. I am sharing a news story. This looks pretty interesting. So there you have it. I also want to point out there is supposed to be 40 to 60 hours of gameplay in this adventure. This is sort of a legacy game is the vibe that I've gotten from it. So, and it looks pretty interesting, I got to say. But anyways, so Kabuki Kid is with us in chat. It's been a while since we saw Double K in the house. 245 Trioxin is with us as well. Clint Gibson has swung on in, so good to see Clint also. So, once again, as I mentioned, chat is off and running. So, Great Ace is not bending. All right, let's move on to some role-playing game news because there was a big news announcement from my pals over at Free League Publishing. There's always something going on with Free League, I'll tell you that. Earlier today, they announced a Blade Runner role-playing game. It's coming in 2022. Here's the scoop. This is the Blade Runner role-playing game, a neon noir wonderland that will take your breath away, one way or another. An evocative world of conflicts and contrasts that dares to ask the hard questions and investigate the powers of empathy, the poisons of fear, and the burdens of being human during inhumane times. An iconic and unforgiving playground of endless possibility that picks you up, slaps you in the face, and tells you to wake up. Time to live or time to die. The official Blade Runner RPG will propel players into the streets of Los Angeles as Blade Runners with unique specialties, personalities, and memories. The core game and its line of expansions will push the boundaries of investigative gameplay in tabletop RPGs. giving players a range of tools to solve an array of cases far beyond retiring replicants. Beyond the core casework, the RPG will, both in setting and mechanics, showcase key themes of Blade Runner: science fiction action, corporate intrigue, existential character drama, and moral conflict that challenge players to question your friends, empathize with your enemies, and explore the poisons and perseverance of hope and humanity during such inhumane times. The rules of the game are based on the acclaimed Year Zero engine used in award-winning games such as the Alien role-playing game, Tales from the Loop, and Forbidden Lands, but further developed and uniquely tailored for Blade Runner. Set in the year 2037, the core rulebook begins the adventure shortly after the Wallace Corporation debuts the new Nexus 9 replicants on Earth, giving the players the choice to play as either human or replicant Blade Runners. As a member of the LAPD's Rep Detect unit, you'll face impossible choices and find beauty in humanity in the stubborn resilience to keep fighting, to persevere through pain, to agonize over inches you can't scratch, to do questionable and extraordinary things, chasing after fleeting moments of love, hope, and redemption, to be lost in time like tears in the rain. Other than that, it's just a normal day on the force. So get to work and grab some noodles on the way. That stack of cases won't crack itself. It's a shame you won't live long enough to solve them all. But then again, who does? There is a short teaser trailer for Blade Runner, the role-playing game. It's actually going to utilize the artwork that I am sharing here, but you get some cool. I don't know if this is Vangelis or not. I don't think it is, but it's got a definite cool feel. So give it a peek. So far, there are no specifics as far as page count or MSRP. Nothing is available just yet. But already working with my contact over at Free League Publishing, Bowl and I have been discussing, of course. I'll be doing some interviews. We're also I'm looking to try to get an interview with Francesco Nepatello. I think that's how his last name's pronounced, to talk The One Ring. So because that is supposed to come out before the end of the year. Keep that in mind. So Kabuki Kid is talking about, I also wonder about how they are going to gamify, I guess we'll say, the Voight Kampf test in the game. You encounter a turtle on its back, struggling for life in the middle of a desert. And so Kabuki Kid's pointing out, love that movie. I saw that movie when it came out. I asked my dad to take me to see it. And I also agree. I thought Blade Runner, 2047? I thought it was excellent. But unfortunately, both movies were bombs. A lot of people don't realize when Blade Runner came out, it was a flop. I liked it. I thought it was very cool. 2049. Thank you. Thank you, Kabuki Kid, for correcting me on that. And yes, I did play the video game from the 90s, and it was from Westwood Studios. And I thought that was very, very good. I thought it was very cool. I remember at the end of the game, you kind of had a decision to make Were you going to, retire the replicants, or were you going to help them escape? And I helped them escape. So Flaming Heron says that they've got 3 copies of the film. Yes, because they've released so many editions of it. The original theatrical edition, which had the voiceover by Harrison Ford. There's also the the edition that has no voiceover to it. I think that's one of the director's cuts. And there's also an expanded edition that has the dream sequence of the unicorn, because the movie is based on the Philip K. Dick novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? So I think I just saw a comment, I think it zipped by, talking about they're very surprised that it's taken this long to have a role-playing game based on Blade Runner. I would take a guess that Philip K. Dick's daughter, who I've met, actually interviewed her as part of roundtables for the 3rd season of The Man in the High Castle. She is very involved with Philip K. Dick's legacy. And I think she was maybe a little leery about allowing game companies to tackle any of the Philip K. Dick properties, because if you think about it, there really aren't role-playing games out there based on his works. But she probably got to see the work that they've done on Alien and many of their other role-playing games, and that probably convinced them. Kabuki Kids says, yes, the unicorn scene from the Legend movie. Yes, and there's also a final cut. Yeah, I thought overall, aren't there like 5 cuts of that, of Blade Runner? I haven't seen them all. I actually prefer the one without the voiceover, actually. But I think I enjoy that because I already know the story. I've seen the movie so many times. I've read, it's a rather short novel, which of course the film is based on. It's not, not even close really story-wise. But I'm excited. This should be very cool. And of course, I'm pretty tight with the fine folks over at Free League Publishing. So we will get to see this the moment it arrives. And maybe a little sooner than that. So Kevin mentions Blade Runner and John Carpenter's The Thing are 2 early 80s box office bombs that are now considered classics. Yes. And once again, I saw The Thing when it was in theaters as well, although I was too young to actually, should have been able to get in, but I always looked older. So Elliot and I think we were both freshmen in high school. We actually got in, and here I was like 13. So never had a problem going to see R-rated movies, that's for sure. All right, so let's move on to our next news piece, because now available in print and PDF from Onyx Path Publishing is Mummy the Curse, 2nd edition. Here's the scoop. I wield the might of gods, the powers of the elements, control over the living and the dead, and yet I cannot tell you my name. It is unknown to me in a darkened corner of my memory, where I do not know when illumination shall reach me. I awoke in this ancient tomb, a crack in its roof, introducing fresh air for the first time in what feels like centuries. At my feet, 3 broken bodies. I vaguely recall shattering them with my fists, or maybe it was with my roar. They disturbed me, and now they are dead. What I know is that gods unimaginable to the rank and file of mortality alternate between goading, tempting, cajoling, and encouraging me. They want me to wake from my slumber, seek out their vessels of power, and return them to the land of the dead, where I might sleep again. I creak and pop my way into motion, circumfusing and pulsating in my desiccated body, my sahu, and I take in my surroundings. Writings on the walls in languages long forgotten, but slowly returning to my mind. They tell me what I am. I am a mummy. I am arisen. I have awoken to serve, but as a god among mortals, I shall be worshipped. I will live again. My memory shall return. My power shall wane. And at the end of the tale, I will know all. I feel hungry mouths approaching my shattered tomb. The time for contemplation is over. I may know my name tomorrow, but before then I will feel the spatter of blood on my skin and the splitting of flesh and bone between my fingers. Mummy the Curse includes everything you need to run or play Mummy the Curse, a game of timeless horror and multiple eras of mystery. It's a deep setting of Eremite history and society, delving into the world of the Arisen and other immortals, sorcerers, and cultists. Powers ranging from the cosmic to the subtle, all at the beck and call of his game's protagonists. A plethora of horrifying foes, from bloody bathers to body thieves, lifeless Shukhasin to chimerical Amkata, and many more. Of course, I know I'm mispronouncing all of that. The 379-page premium hardcover is available through Drive-Thru RPG for $89.99. The standard hardcover is $49.99. There is also I believe there is a soft cover available too. You can grab the PDF alone for $24.99. I do believe that this had a successful Kickstarter. I think Onyx Path did a Kickstarter for this. Like the artwork. Artwork looks pretty cool. I like that. Pretty nice. And J-Mac has joined us in chat. Very cool. So there's some discussion of some classics that were bombs. So anyway. So this looks pretty interesting if you are into the world of darkness, of course. Bane Kerr's with us. Very cool. Very cool. So Bane mentions that they're digging through the Gen Con coverage. Yes, you're very welcome. I am going to, after I finish up my last news piece, which is coming right up next, I'll give you a little rundown on my Gen Con. I didn't do it on Monday because I know there were a lot of people who were tuning in for the first time, and they were looking to check out the Twilight 2000 box set from Free League because I'm the only outlet who's got it. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's move on to my final news piece, because this is another big news item as well. This one's coming from my friends over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment, and the finale of the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay The Enemy Within Director's Cut. Say that 5 times fast. It is available in PDF from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. Here are the details on Empire in Ruins. I saw a blasphemous city coming down from the heavens, and as it descended, the people cried out in woe. I saw death, madness, and transformation as the exalted Lord brought his master's realm to the crown of the Empire. Empire in Ruins is the 5th volume of the revised and updated director's cut of The Enemy Within, one of the most highly regarded role-playing campaigns ever written. After the events of the Horned Rat, the heroes have won the respect and trust of many in Middenheim. But before they can capitalize on their renown, the Empire descends into the turmoil of civil strife. In the final part of the 5-part series of grim and perilous Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay adventures, a number of threats that the characters may have thought far behind them reassert their influence. Icons of authority and leadership are found wanting, and the greatest nation in the old world appears destined to shake itself to pieces. Only by undertaking a dangerous journey can the characters prevent the ruination of all they hold dear. Empire in Ruins includes the 5th part of the Enemy Within campaign, conceived by legendary Wifrup writer Graham Davis, with contributions by a team of talented Wifrup writers. The schemes of the Altdorf cell of the Purple Hand, whose plots place those of Karl-Heinz Wassmeyer and the Middenheim cell in the shade. The ambitions of a certain Magister Impedimenti, how they coincide with the grand designs of the Purple Hand, and how they diverge. A culmination of controversies that have featured in adventures over the past few years. the true archetype of the Ubersreich takeover, the rouser of beastmen and mutants, the inspiration of demonologists and heretics, shall be revealed. Memorable villains such as the Madcraw tribe, the Threshers, and the multifarious departments of the remaining Purple Hand are included as well. The 208-page PDF of Empire in Ruins can be had right now, as of today, over at DriveThruRPG for $22.99. I agree with Flaming Huron. Waiting to see what they've done with Empire in Ruins, because from my understanding, this is completely new, because the original The Enemy Within campaign, a lot of people really disliked the finale of that. It was kind of a very anticlimactic, and I kind of know what happened in it, but I don't know. Actually, I don't think it was called Empire in Ruins. I forget the title of it, but it was the 5th part, and it was not. Oh, Empire in Flames, wasn't that it? Isn't that what it was called? I don't know. I don't know for sure. I think it was. I think that's what it was called. So can't wait to check this out. I got the PDF this morning from my pals over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment. Of course, you know, I always do the reviews based on the hardcover books. So I still have, I've got the 3rd chapter. I've got my review coming for that. That'll be coming relatively soon. That is the news for tonight. Of course, I do want to mention that I wrapped up with a couple of stories where you can get the PDFs over at DriveThruRPG. Please keep in mind that the Gaming Gang is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, DriveThruRPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a little portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep the gaminggang.com around. Also, if you like what I do, if you like the website, if you like the channel, if you enjoy watching the live streams, by all means, you can always buy me a cup of coffee or some soda, some gas station sushi, as John Sokolowski did. I hope I'm getting John's last name pronounced correctly. Ugh. John actually sent along a few bucks when I was heading down to Gen Con and said, yeah, this is for gas and gas station sushi. I didn't stop for gas station sushi because I wanted to actually be healthy enough to cover the con. Mark H. Walker from Flying Pig Games is a supporter as well. So all you got to do is you can swing on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang. Easy enough. All right, so a little bit of a recap of my Gen Con experience. I already talked about how I nearly got killed on Monday's show, so I will not go over that again. Drove down from the Chicago area, so it was, pretty quick run. It was about 3.5 hours. It's not that bad a drive. Far shorter drive than going to Columbus for Origins. That's about 6-7 hours. And got down there, was able to check into my room. I went down on Wednesday, so the day before. I had already set things up thinking that the press was going to be allowed to hang out for trade day. Why couldn't I think trade day, Jeff? Boink. Which is always the Wednesday before the convention kicks off. And this year, that wasn't the case. So a lot of times, you can go down there on Wednesday, you go to trade day, you actually get your badge then, so you don't have to stand in any sort of line the next morning at the press room to get your pass and that. But they weren't doing it. So that was kind of a last minute thing. So I had already booked my room for Wednesday night. So, but it was kind of cool. I stayed at the Crown Plaza. I keep saying Crown Royal. Yeah, I stayed at the Crown Royal bag with my dice after I finished Crown Royal. I stayed at the Crown Plaza right across the street, and that was really nice because whenever somebody, we usually park in the parking garage next door to it anyway. So, if as we're getting review copies of stuff, just head over to the parking garage and drop stuff off into the car and that. But it was also very cool that if I wanted to go back to the room, I could just stroll back over because it was unbelievably humid all the time I was there. I was like, oh my gosh, I have never been in Indianapolis and had it this humid. And I actually lived in Indiana. Oh, it was northern Indiana for a couple of years, and it was never like that either. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is brutal. In fact, Wednesday night, I went and had some cocktails with Stephen Bonacore and Corey from Dice Tower News and Stephen's partner in crime, Paula, and some other folks, and Bill, who I always forget his last name. He's like the art director for Stronghold and Indie Boards and Cards, and had a good time at a few too many adult beverages, I think. Not at the time. It wasn't like I was falling down drunk or something like that, but the next day I was kind of feeling it. And it was sort of funny because all the humidity the next day and kind of dragging tail. I wasn't hungover, but I was dragging tail, thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can do this convention thing anymore. Like all the walking around convention halls, exhibit halls and stuff like that. And I went and did an interview. I'm not going to say who it was with. If you've watched the Gen Con coverage, you'll notice it. But it was at in somebody's hotel room, and I swear I even asked, "Do you have a humidifier running in here?" Because it was so hot and so humid. Sweat was literally, and I understand how to use that word, pouring off my face. And I thought it was just me, but it was kind of a group interview. It was myself and another outlet, a couple of guys from this other outlet. And I glanced over at them. Sweat was pouring off of them too. So it was like, oh my, thankfully I was not on camera because I would have looked miserable. I would have looked miserable. But had a good time. I had a lot of fun with the interviews. And I don't like to say, oh, well, this was my favorite. I really enjoyed this one more than this or anything like that. But there are some what I would consider standout interviews out of the bunch. And there were only 13 because many companies that I normally will do interviews with were not in attendance this year. So there was no Modifius Entertainment. Obviously, there was no interview with my pal Dominic McDowell from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. So there were fewer interviews than I normally do. But I also don't kill myself doing interviews anymore. I don't go racing through the exhibit hall to make sure that I've got, like 8 interviews in a day. No, that doesn't happen. But had a lot of fun talking to Ray Billings from Czech Games Edition. That was a fun interview. Had a great time interviewing Wolfgang Bauer from Cobalt Press. He loaded me down with so much Cobalt Press stuff. We had to put it in a box and have one of the volunteers from the booth carry it over to my car. It was that heavy. So we have got loads of cool Cobalt Press stuff that we're going to see some coverage of as well. My interview with Adam Minton from Funko Games. That was a pretty entertaining interview. It was kind of cool because things have changed a little bit, because when I first got into doing this, I'm in my 12th year of covering the hobby. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with the gaming gang, like I joke around, I kid around. We're talking about gaming. I mean, we're not talking life and death or anything like that. And sometimes people say something or something pops into my head that makes me think of some other sort of pop culture reference or anything like that. If you listen to the old podcasts with Elliot and I, you'll see that it's just a thing I do. Something pops into my head about something, and I make a reference to it. People used to just stare at me like a deer in the headlights when I'd crack a joke. Not anymore. Well, for one, I tell them up front that, I'm probably going to kid around a little bit. So Kevin says Gen Con '06 was pretty darn hot and humid. I was not at '06's Gen Con. I think I went to 5 Gen Cons when it was in Milwaukee. Sorry, I can't tell you exactly when, but it was late 80s. I think we were seniors in high school the first time we went. And I've covered every Gen Con since, I think 2012. I think 2012 was the first Gen Con I covered as the press. And Elliot and I ran all over. We were only doing voice interviews. And we ran all over the place all the time. And did that for a couple of years. And it was like, no, we're done with that. We are not killing ourselves because once you record it, then you've got to edit it. And, especially like when it was audio, I was like a real stickler on it moving along. Some people have this, they'll talk and they have long pauses and you're like, okay, I'm going to have to cut that. So I had a really good time. So got plenty of goodies to share with you as well. Tonight, we're looking at the Rocketeer from Funko. I also have Pan Am from Funko, the Goonies. If you caught my interview with Adam, I comment about how every time I look, the Target store nearby, because it is a Target exclusive through the end of the year, they always show it. They've got 1 or 2 in stock, and then I go over there, and it's only like 10 minutes away. They don't have anything. And I'm like, damn you, Target. So we've got the Goonies, and we also have Fast and Furious. So we'll be taking a look at those. Did want to look at the Rocketeer first because it was a Gen Con release. So yeah, a lot of fun. Talked to Lance Peterschmidt over at AEG. That was my final interview. That was on Sunday. That was where I almost got killed walking over to the hotel. So Nicholas says they heard that about this year was about 50% board games and about 15% tabletop role-playing game, with lots of Kickstarters having booths this year. Is that accurate? As Kabuki Kid points out, 2012, famously a good gaming year. Yes, it was. And that was the year when I first met Dominic McDowell from Cubicle 7 Entertainment, and I had a really good interview with him. I knew really nothing about the company. At that point in time, they published a lot of role-playing games from small, publishing houses. Cake Bread in Walton is one that I remember they used to publish stuff for. And he was super nice. And after the interview, he's like, would you like to review some of our stuff? And it was another case of he was loading us down with all this stuff. I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, holy cow. So, Nicholas, yes, that is pretty accurate. So the exhibit hall this year, it was kind of strange. I'll be the first to point out it was kind of strange this year because, for one, the booths were further apart, so there was more room there. There were large areas that, if you go to Gen Con normally, they were putting up things that are normally out in the halls. So, like, there's this big Gen Con that's usually in one of the halls. Well, that was in the exhibit hall. There was a dragon, like, in the exhibit hall, just kind of taking up space. There were some, like, areas where it was just an open exhibitor area where it looked like maybe that company had decided right at the last minute that they were not going to attend. The exhibit hall had been shortened up. So normally when you walk into the exhibit hall, if you go from the main entrances, if you go straight back to the wall, where there's restrooms and there's usually a little like, food concession stands. That was all blocked off with black curtains. So they had shrunk that down quite a bit as well. There was a big eBay exhibit, and it was like, what? And they were like, I think they were selling Pokemon cards. I know they did a Pokemon card giveaway, but there were some exhibitors there that in a normal year, it was like, no. So there was a lot of artists, authors, and I'm not knocking them. There's always there's always an artist and author area at Gen Con. There was just seemed to have been a lot more of it. So, but I mean, everybody was having a really good time. And as far as I understand, talking to the various exhibitors, there were some discussions that I had off the record about, business things. But on the record, everybody was telling me that things were really good. Saturday was very good for a lot of companies in that. And there were a lot of companies that showed up and they were like, we don't know what to expect. It's like, what is this going to be like? Now, I talked to some gamers. I actually talked to a lot of gamers. And there were like 3 who had mentioned that it seemed like the pricing on the games was lower than it usually is. And they said that it didn't seem like there was a lot of Gen Con markup, which normally most game companies, when they're at a show, they don't mark up their merchandise. They don't mark up their releases. It's regular MSRP. Now, you're usually not going to find a big deal. You're not going to find like an online retailer deal. But all in all, I had a lot of fun. Of course, it's not Gen Con without my best friend, Elliot Miller, but I still had a really good time. I went out to dinner with Chris Ayala. I think I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Chris used to do some reviews for the Gaming Gang a few years ago, and he contacted me. He said, "Hey, I'm here at Gen Con, man. Let's go grab some dinner." And I went and did that. So, yeah, it was a good time. It's a good time. I'm very surprised. I'm done with all my interviews. All my interviews are up. And I am very thankful because I had them up yesterday. So I already had a couple that I had put up on the second day. So I had graphics done in advance and all this other stuff. I just had to put some stuff together, do a little trimming on some of the videos, and good to go. So usually I end up rolling out my last interview from Gen Con about a week after Gen Con ends. So thankfully I was ahead of the curve this time. So sweet. Very cool. So hopefully we get rid of this effing COVID and things get back to normal for con season. I was going to say, I ran into on the Thursday, I ran into Alexander and Grant from the Players Aid. And it was kind of funny because I saw Grant walking and I said something like, "Hey, troublemaker," something like that, And he's like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" And he's asked how I was doing and stuff. And then there was somebody standing there. I'm like, why is this person like hovering there? And I looked up and it was Alexander. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry that I didn't say it. I was like, duh. So we were talking and they'd asked if I was going to Origins. I said, no, I'm not going to go. For a variety of different reasons. One is it's just right on top of Gen Con. So I'm used to doing the San Diego Comic-Con. Next week, it's Gen Con. But I've heard there's a lot of exhibitors going. I've heard there's a lot of media who aren't going to go. Like, I was very surprised that Alexander and Grant aren't going to Origins, they had said. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. As much as I'd like to go to see Herman Luttman and Fred Manzo and Mark H. Walker, because he's usually there with Flying Pig Games, I'm going to pass this year. So Kabuki Kid says that she thinks that we are in the final stages of the pandemic. I certainly hope so. I really hope so. There are just these diehard standouts there. I don't know. I don't know. Not to get political or anything, but real quick, and we will jump into the Rocketeer because I know it show's almost an hour long now. As terrible as it sounds, don't have a ton of sympathy for these people that they're showing. It's like every night. So the news was on in local news, right? Chicago news. And they said, pregnant mother who spent 2 weeks in a COVID coma has a message for everyone. And I'm like, yep, here comes the message. She's going to say, get vaccinated. And of course, that was the message. And it was like, well, you know what? You should have taken your own advice prior to this. Then you most likely would not have spent 2 weeks in a coma. And probably now has, underlying conditions that she hasn't even discovered yet. I think that's the worst part. What I'm hearing from a lot of people who get COVID, there's things going on with their bodies. So anyway, like I said, don't want to get into that, but I mean, I wish more people here in the United States were like people in other countries who are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much that we have this vaccine. Not, Big Pharma is, trying to sterilize me with his shots. All right. So Kevin says that their local con is having a mask mandate. Gen Con did too. You had to wear your mask all the time unless you were in this one area eating or drinking. That was it. Or like I would pull it down, take a sip of something and pop it back up. So Kabuki Kid says at least maybe some of these people are convincing some holdouts to finally get vaccinated. Unfortunately, I think that's probably not the case. I have heard from some people. I know some people who will not get vaccinated, and nothing is going to change their minds. All right, so I'm sure some folks are tuning in because they want to get a peek at the Rocketeer, Fates of the Future from Funko Games. It is designed by Prospero Hall with artwork provided by Henning Ludvigsen, which I'm actually very surprised because that there's an art credit, because a lot of times the Funko releases, I notice, just say Prospero Hall. That's it. And for those who are not necessarily in the know, Funko Games is Prospero Hall, and Prospero Hall is Funko Games. This game is for 2 players. It's for ages 12 and up. Plays in around 45 minutes. It does carry an MSRP of $24.99. It is available in stores right now. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here we've got the Rocketeer, Fate of the Future. All right, let's flip this on over. Let me get my hobby knife because I'm going to have to cut this open because it's got little, doesn't have shrink wrap. It's got little stickers here keeping it closed. Trouble is brewing high above the city of angels. The mysterious Rocketeer, who can blast through the skies with an ingenious jetpack, must stop a sinister plot. Hollywood actor Neville Sinclair is scheming to steal the rocket's blueprints. This breakthrough of modern engineering could revolutionize the future of flight, but in Sinclair's hands, it could fuel the dark future of warfare. Play as the heroes or the villains in this action-packed strategy game for 2 players. Whether for good or evil, you will determine the fate of the future. So I had to chuckle. I didn't say anything during my interview with Adam Minton from Funko. But we were talking about the Rocketeer, and he says, this is a true 2-player game. It's not a game, 4 players scales down to 2. He said, this is a true 2-player game. And he said, and there aren't too many of those. And I thought to myself, dude, there's thousands of games that are designed only for 2 players. But, I was being nice. I didn't want to be a joke. All right, let's open this up, see what we've got. I have to say, a did I not? Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't I cut that? Did I not cut that? Pretty sure I cut that. Come on. Come on there. Come on out, Rocketeer. I know we were talking about the Warriors, the announcement for the Warriors game. So it's like, come on, Rocketeer. Come out to play. Yay. All right, let's see what's going on here. Holy cow. It's like, geez. And I did cut through the stickers. All right, so we've got a kind of cool Los Angeles 1939. Isn't that when the Rocketeer takes place? I think it's 1939. So we've got a kind of a almost like a little bit of a map to the stars. So Kabuki Kid says tightest box ever. Yeah, it was sort of like, wow, what the hell's going on here? Open up. That's kind of cool. And of course, yes, that was back when it was known as Hollywood Land. It was not Hollywood. I like that. Very cool. Very nice. So one thing I have to say is the only Funko game I've actually reviewed was the Funkoverse. And as I mentioned to Adam, I was like, I thought it was like, it's all right. Especially if you were a fan of the Pops. But strangely enough, that video, even though I don't really give it a recommendation, I just say, if you're a big fan of the Pops, you might enjoy it. But it's not, it's not much of a game. At least that was my opinion. But that video still pulls in like 50 to 75 views a day. And that video is like 2 years old. Oh, and so now we've got the tightest shrink wrap of all time, too, I see. Okay. So what is this? Is this a game board? I'm taking a guess this is the game board. Yes, no, maybe. It looks as if it is. There we go. Well, that's kind of weird that it opens that way. I would assume that would have opened this way. Here we go. So we have some different locales on the board here. So we've got the Observatory, the South Seas Club, Sinclair Mansion, played by Timothy Dalton in the film, 1635 Palm Terrace, the Bulldog Cafe. This was another video game that was pretty cool back in the day. And then we've got Chapel Airfield. So No Enemies Here. Dan from No Enemies Here has popped in. It's been a while since we saw Dan. Good to see you, Dan. So that is the game board. Take a look at it this way. Give you a better look. So one thing I have noticed about what I've seen of the Funko games is the production quality is pretty nice. And the price tags are fairly low. Now, as far as how much, game is in the games, well, then that's something we're going to find out. I'm assuming that this is a fairly lightweight game. So we've got the instructions. So that's the game board. So we've got our game setup. Object of the game, fight for the plans to keep them out of your enemy's hands. Fate of the future depends on its. Gain finale cards if you have the plans or control locations around Los Angeles. When the Luxembourg Zeppelin, which we actually get a miniature of, reaches Los Angeles on its goodwill tour, use your finale cards to add up your points. Player with the most points wins. I've always liked the Rocketeer. I think it is a cult classic. It would have been nice to have seen more Rocketeer movies. I gotta say, there are points to it that it is a rather boring movie. So I can understand why the Rocketeer didn't do as well as Disney had hoped. Mainly because it's a Disney movie. So we've got our actions and abilities so we can move, we can tussle. Come on, bring it on, bring it on. We can gain grit. We can gain clout. We can draw a card. We can draw a finale card. We can raise a rocket token, heroes only. Recruit a soldier, villains only. Gain rewards. Talking about preparing for a new round and the end of the game. So I think, let's take a peek again. Now maybe it's a different track. Yeah, I think it's a different track. There's a track that you're gonna move the Zeppelin along as your timer. So we've got so many turns. So we've got some tokens. It's kind of cool that they're already punched out. We got some minis. We'll take a closer look at the minis in just a moment. Jason Bradley has popped in. So good to see you, Jason. Thanks for swinging on in. Says it's 2 a.m. where they're at, but they saw the stream was going, so they thought they'd pop in and say hello. All right, so we've got some more game board. Looks like that is our track for the Zeppelin. And we've got cards. These are blueprint cards, and then we've got the different decks of cards, because I think the heroes and the villains each have their own decks. Kabuki Kid says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles drew in a lot of young audiences. So Kabuki Kid loved The Rocketeer, thought it was great, sort of old-fashioned movie that didn't appeal to all kids. Some kids wanted to see the teenage. Yeah, that's right. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out right about the same time. All right, so let's take a look. Let's get closer in here, as close as we can go. I am going to try to lower the overhead camera a little bit so we can get a little closer in. So here we've got our player board. So there's Jenny, who was played by Jennifer Connelly in the film. Got PvP Body, who was Alan Arkin. So he was in that. We got our main hero, Cliff Secord, who is a Rocketeer. Now, for some reason, off the top of my head, I can't remember the actor's name. Duh. And we've got Lothar. For some reason, we've got a little extra paper on that. There we go. So we've got the villains here. Eddie Valentine. And then Neville Sinclair, played by Timothy Dalton in the film. So here is that Luxembourg Goodwill Tour board that we track. So each round it moves closer. So it starts off in Lakehurst, I believe it's New Jersey, Washington, D.C. It crashed into the Hindenburg. Oh, my gosh. Washington, Chicago, St. Louis, Denver, and Los Angeles. And at the end of the game, I believe when the Zeppelin makes it to Los Angeles, that is your last round. All right, let's take a peek at some of these blueprint cards. Oh, these are finale cards? Okay, so we got the plans. So there we've got the plans. Then we've got these finale cards, which I think Adam had mentioned that these finale cards kind of give us a little bit of a story as well. Kabuki Kid says best Joe Johnson movie, they think. So Dan says they always had a thing for Jennifer Connelly. I agree. And the interesting thing, she's been in some really deep movies. I mean, very dramatic movies. What is it? The House of Wind and Sand? Is that the name of the title? Oh, what a fantastic movie. A lot of times she plays kind of scummy people. So we've got some different point values here. based on controlling things. 1 point, get an extra point for every grit. Just 3 points, 3 points. 2 points plus 2 points if you control the South Seas Club. So you're going to collect these cards throughout the game, and then at the end, you're going to score them. And of course, whoever's got the most victory points is going to be the winner. So, of course, I'm assuming if you've got the plans, that is worth a surprisingly high number of victory points, is my guess. So, Dan says, too bad she's Irish. Like, okay, I'm Irish too, man. I know he says he's joking. Yes, Requiem for a Dream. Oh, yeah, that is not a. Oh, my gosh. Ellen Burn. Isn't it Ellen Burstyn? I forget how to pronounce your last name. Who plays the mom in it, who gets addicted to like diet pills. Oh my God. All right. So we've got the minis. So here's the Zeppelin. And it looks like the Zeppelin should have a stand. I don't see a stand. Uh-oh. Don't see. There's a little hole there for it to stand on. Oh, wait, here it is. I was going to say. I did an unboxing. I can't remember the name of what the game was, but I did an unboxing one time, and it was missing something. It was like, wait a second. It's like, where is it? Yes, Ellen Burstyn should have won the Oscar. Yeah, this is a very, it's not an easy movie to watch. So Great A's talking about Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. That was a flop too. That was kind of weird. All right, so there we've got that. So here is, let's see, I'm going to hold this a little closer to the camera. Hopefully the autofocus will. All right, there we go. So that is the Jenny miniature. Here is the Cliff Secord mini with the iconic pose as he's just about to take off. There's decent detail to it, I'd say. So here's PV. Kabuki Kid points out Jenny was Betty in the comics. Yes, because in the comics, Dave Stevens made Jenny look just like Betty Page. So, all right. So that is that Eddie Valentine, the gangsta. There's Lothar. He's got a. It looks like he's carrying a wrench. He's got to brain you with. And then here is Neville Sinclair. And of course, this is the Zeppelin. There you go. Get to see the detail on that as well. All right. So we've also got these tokens. And then finally, we'll look at some of the cards. So we got various different tokens. Some of these are grit tokens. So nice card stock. Kind of cool. They're already punched for you. You don't have to worry about it. So Kabuki Kid points out that the Neville Sinclair character is sort of an evil Errol Flynn. Yes. Who also likes age-appropriate women. For those of you in the know. So. All right, let's take a look at the cards here. So this is a bit of an area control game also. That's what the board has the different locations for. All right. Cardstock's decent. They are, I'd say it's a little thin, but not too bad. Of course, you can easily sleeve them. There's no linen finish to them. But for $24.99, I'm not expecting linen finish and real thick cardstock either. Kid says about the age appropriate comment. She's like, yeah. All right. So we got the villains, we got the heroes, we've got events. So we've got event cards, it looks like. Got a reference card for each of the players. Kind of cool that they're like different colors. It's just different color layout. Same card though. But they match with their decks. That's a nice little extra. You know, that most people wouldn't know. So we got current events here. Goon on the loose. Clown show becomes frown show. Man flies without plane. Flash just in. Hughes visits Chapel Airfield. Palm Terrace home turned into gazebo. Star spotted at the observatory. Sinclair charms Hollywood hopeful. Smooth sailing at the South Seas. Bulldog Cafe put on a leash. And shady business at Sinclair Mansion. So those are some event cards. So it looks like you'll have some leftover events that do not take place because there are not this many rounds in the game. All right, let's take a look at the hero cards. Cool artwork. Rocket Charge. A little luck. There we go. A little bubble gum on the hole. Speaking Role. Grand Heroics. I see we've got some icons here along the side. Got little shields here. I would take a stab at, like, when you get into a tussle, you're going to probably play some cards. Basic Aviation. Another Basic Aviation. Making headlines. Millie's Cooking. Should say cooking. They didn't drop the G. Grand Heroics. A little luck. Put it in neutral. Another Rocket Charge. Another little luck. Pack a wallop. Keep it hidden. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. Cubicle says one of the headlines. Nazi spotted in uniform at Griffith Park Observatory. Flaming Heron says, Star spotted at observatory. Wow, slow news day. Yes, of course, it's supposed to be like Neville Sinclair is spotted there. All right. Blindsided, that's a new one. We didn't see that one before. Smashing success. As somebody's picking up a vase. Teamwork. Few of those. Sell it for scrap. Searching. Smashing success. Here we go. Calling the feds. And another searching card. All right, so that is the heroes deck right there. And we got the villains deck. Let's see what we got with this. Secret Army. And yes, of course, we are not going to see Nazi uniforms or the swastika in this game. Yeah, the art is pretty good. Pretty nice. Brute Force. Number 3 box star. Snatch and grab. Where is it? Where is it? Kabuki Kid says, would have been nice if they did the art in a Dave Stevens style, though. You know, Dave Stevens was kind of a one of a kind. He really was. Great artist. As a person, I've heard bad things, but as an artist, top notch. Decoy Rocket, making headlines. Condolence Call. Triple my price. Secret Army. Valentine Gang. Brute Force. Determination. Muscle for hire. I do my own stunts. Thank you very much. Decoy rockets. Goodwill tour. You get a teamwork as well. Sucker punch. All right. So we have some multiples of a few things. So Kabuki Kid says, yeah, heard bad things too. Great artist though. Yeah, that's kind of a problem sometimes. It's like, man, I really love this guy's art, but I've heard some really crappy things. All right, the villains deck, the heroes deck, current events, couple of reference cards. That is the deck of cards that we've got. So we have, let's zoom back out a little bit. We've got all those cards there. We've got our 3 plans cards. We got our finale cards. And we got a little bag for those. Put those back in. We've got our 6 miniatures of the main characters, the heroes and the villains. We've got a Zeppelin miniature, which we're going to use on our timing track. Take it apart there with a little stand. Got a bunch of tokens that were already pre-punched for us. We've got the 2 big cardstock cards. They're nice and thick too. So we've got our hero, Cliff Secord, and our villain, Neville Sinclair. We've got our supporting cast as well. We've got our Luxembourg timing card here that we're going to actually probably put right, I would guess, is it the same length? Yep. We're going to basically, keeps throwing me off that this opens up like that. So we're obviously enough going to do something like that as we play. We're going to put that there, and we're going to use the Zeppelin as our turn marker. Oops. Pop that in there. And we've got our rules. And once again, as I mentioned, I thought this insert here is just very cool. That's a nice little extra. Don't know what the game is like yet. Once again, you just saw me unbox this. I am going to do my best to play this next week or so. Elliot and I are going to get together because I actually picked up some games for him at GenCon. So going to take care of that. So, of course, once again, the Rocketeer Fate of the Future is from Funko Games. It's designed by Prospero Hall. Artwork provided by Henning Ludvigsen. Very cool art. Like the art style. Kind of a retro look, too. Very nice. Games for 2 players, ages 12 and up. Plays in around 45 minutes. Does carry an MSRP of $24.99. It is available in friendly local game stores right now. All right, Nicholas had to rock on out. Kabuki Kid is pointing out that they'd love to try this game out. Good to see you, Nicholas. We'll see you next time. Yes. So Kabuki Kid, in case you missed it, I also have the Goonies. If you caught my interview with Adam from Funko Games, I was giving Target a hard time because it keeps saying it's in stock at my local Target and it never is when I go in to get it. So I have it. So I will be sharing that as well. All right, let's swing on over to the other camera and wrap up for this evening. Anyway, as I mentioned, stay tuned. I will have a review of the Rocketeer Fate of the Future in the very near future. If you're wondering what's cooking on next week's shows, no show on Monday because I'm having oral surgery. I don't know how that's going to go and how I'm going to feel. So I don't know what's going on next week. I am going to do my best to have at least one show next week. If I'm actually feeling pretty good afterwards, I might just do Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Do you also want to point out once October rolls around, I'm going to move to 3 shows a week. I don't know if I'm going to go back to 4, but I am going to do 3 shows a week, at least for the foreseeable future, because I've got a lot of stuff to share with you. So next week, whenever I have my next show, we are going to take a look at Scarlet Citadel from Kobold Press. This is a dungeon delve. This is the newest adventure, I do believe, from Kobold Press. So we are going to dive into this. We're going to take a first look. So Flaming Heron's asking if there's more Gen Con videos. No, that's it. They're all done. They're all up. There would have been, of course, more interviews if a lot of the companies I always meet with had been there. But there were a couple I set up, and then one I'm not going to call the company out, but one of the interviews I had set up, they didn't have a booth, which, yeah, okay, that's not unusual. But there was supposed to be what everybody thought was a release at Gen Con from the company. And they were in one of the halls, and I couldn't find anything. There was no signage for the company. There was no place that they were actually selling the game. So kind of looked maybe like they were just demoing the game, and they didn't have any, because I looked through the exhibit hall, they weren't listed. So I was like, I don't know. So I went looking around, and then I shot an email to the person saying, hey, I went looking for your area. I didn't see it. And that was the day before the interview. And then they didn't get back to me until after the scheduled interview. So there could have been a couple of more interviews, but I covered the bases pretty well. I did stop and reach out for Hachette Games. See, here's the other thing. I did stop at companies and drop off cards to try to arrange to do an interview. And some of the folks, when I stepped up, they didn't know who I was. Like, for an example, Games by Bicycle. Gave them a card, talked to them for a few minutes. We scheduled an interview. Most of the time when I dropped a card off with the company, and there were about 8 companies that I dropped cards with to try to set something up, the person I gave the card to they were just there as a volunteer. A couple of them didn't even really know who I would talk to. And I was just like, hey, if they want to do an interview and have them shoot me a text, shoot me an email. So Kabuki Kid asks, is Will Wheaton still the spokesperson for Bicycle? I got to be honest, I didn't even know Will Wheaton was the spokesperson for Bicycle. Although I do have a couple of Bicycle games that we're going to take a look at. We've got the Gen Con release, which is Emergency Broadcast. And then a pretty, at least art-wise, the art looks very interesting. A card game called Sideshow Swap. So we will be taking a look at those as well. So Kabuki Kid says it was about a year back. One thing that I noticed, at least with my experience in the industry, usually companies like Yellow Games brought on somebody who was, I'm not going to name any names. She was very nice. Don't get me wrong. I did an interview with her and things like that. But I was kind of surprised that they had brought her on as a game ambassador or something like that, because she wasn't really a gamer. But that kind of stuff usually lasts about a year or less. So it's usually, we've brought on so-and-so as, basically just as a way to, gain attention in that. And then after that, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's not. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if he still is as well. Bicycle, or I should say Games by Bicycle. They've got a few games, but they are very light games. Although I reviewed the alpha and really did like it, and it had a little more meat to it than I was expecting. So Kevin asks, Bicycle still has a board games division? Haven't heard anything in a while, but that might be just because of COVID. Yeah, because they had a Gen Con release emergency broadcast. Flaming Heron points out, bringing celebs, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, on board for these companies. It's all just marketing. Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is. Trying to get a little social media stuff going. All right. That is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the dispatch streams live right here on YouTube. At least it's supposed to let you know. It'll also inform you when I upload other videos, such as my review of Dungeons & Dragons, The Wild Beyond the Witchlights from Wizards of the Coast, which I really, really enjoyed. I think people are going to have a lot of fun with this adventure, as long as they don't expect it to be full of combat. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Those of you who watched live, thank you very much. I always appreciate people hanging out, keeping me company, so I'm not just babbling on into the ether. I mean, I'm still babbling on into the ether, but at least there's a few people hanging around. Of course, I also know there's plenty of folks out there who do not have an opportunity to watch live. Thank you very much as well. Just as much as the people watch live, I appreciate those who don't watch live, but do watch just as much. Thank you so very much. Anyway, I will be back sometime next week. I always recommend follow me on Twitter at The Gaming Gang, because you'll usually know the night before, or at least the morning of the latest show. I tell you what's coming. So fingers crossed, maybe we got a show Tuesday. Otherwise, I should be back on Wednesday, which will be the 29th. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend. And until I see you next time, here's hoping each and every one of you has an opportunity to get in some really great gaming with your own gang. Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're kicking it, how about subscribing to the Gaming Gang channel, or seeing the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or finding out what YouTube recommends you check out here at my channel. And of course, don't forget, get your geek on at thegaminggang.com.